Updates with Mr. Warford. Updates with Mr. Warford. Updates with Mr. Warford. Updates with Mr. Warford.
What's up? Welcome to another episode of Updates with Mr. Warford. You're probably asking yourselves a few questions. Warford, why are you not in your classroom like you usually are? Don't worry about it. 2, where are you? Don't worry about it. 3, you're the best teacher that I've ever had, and I don't know how to tell you. Just tell me in person at school. I already know, but thank you so much. All right, this is for my world history people learning about the English Reformation. So, the English Reformation. We've been talking a lot in this unit on the Protestant Reformation about chunks of Western Europe, especially around the Holy Roman Empire. Now we're shifting our focus to England specifically. So, what are the origins of the English Reformation? A lot of it was brought on by politics and not so much passion over religion, although there was that as well. King Henry VIII was King of England from 1509 to 1547. He wanted a separation from his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, because she had tried multiple times to birth a son that could be the heir to the throne, that he could be king after King Henry VIII dies, but they didn't have a son. They only had a daughter named Mary. At the time, it was important for kings to have sons to pass on their family name and their lineage. And they had a daughter named Mary. Since he wanted a male heir to the throne, and Catherine of Aragon was getting of an age where maybe she wouldn't be able to have any more children, he becomes infatuated with a woman named Anne Boleyn that is in Catherine of Aragon's entourage. So very scandalous. So Henry VIII wants to separate and get his marriage annulled, so he asks the Pope at the time, Pope Clement VII, for an annulment. And an annulment essentially just means someone rules that the marriage is illegitimate and it goes away. And Pope Clement VII actually refused the annulment because he had a political alliance in place with Charles V, leader of the Holy Roman Empire. Remember him from when we talked about Martin Luther? And Charles V was actually the nephew of Catherine of Aragon. So this is like a soap opera. So for political reasons, Pope Clement VII says no to the annulment. You still have to be married to Catherine. King Henry VIII, kind of miffed about that. He says, I'm going to go over your head and I'm going to go to the Parliament of England, which was the lawmaking body of that day, and to the church-run courts of that day. And he not only gets the annulment, but the Church of England actually splits from the Roman Catholic Church and says that the Pope has no power over us anymore. Very big deal at the time. Not only that, but the Act of Supremacy of 1535 says that King Henry VIII is the head of the English Church, not the Pope. Also a very big deal at the time. Henry VIII gets to marry Anne Boleyn, and they have a baby girl, not a boy, which is a bummer for Henry VIII. But her name is Elizabeth, and she becomes Elizabeth I, a Queen of England, later in history. We're going to talk about her soon. Although he officially broke from the Catholic Church, the Church of England has a lot of Catholic doctrine still in it because Henry VIII was a Catholic, and really the split was more about his marriage than it was about religious issues. But because of the split and because he becomes head of the church, Protestants and Catholics alike are very angry with King Henry VIII because they don't think he has a place in running the entire religious body of the entire country. Henry VIII eventually will marry a total of 6 different women on this search to find but for his new wife to have a son. And he only is successful once with a son named Edward. So some kind of crazy facts about Henry VIII. He's a very fascinating person in world history. He had Sir Thomas More, remember him from the Renaissance? He wrote a book called Utopia. He had him executed for calling him out on his actions when he split from the Catholic Church. He wrote a very popular book in the day called In Defense of the Seven Sacraments, which was a reaction to Martin Luther. And for defending the Catholic Church at the time, he was nicknamed Defender of the Faith by the sitting Pope of that day. But then he broke from the Catholic Church. So kind of crazy. When he died in 1547 at age 55, a pretty decent age for to die in the 1500s, he actually weighed over 300 pounds due to an injury he had while jousting. He had two of his 6 wives that he had in his lifetime executed for treason and adultery. And he was said to be very paranoid about becoming sick from disease and also very paranoid of being betrayed by those around him. Maybe that played a role in why he killed 2 of his ex-wives. Who knows? So eventually Henry VIII dies. Okay, after his death in 1547, his only male heir, Edward, becomes king. But here's the crazy thing. He was only 9 years old. So imagine if you became president of the United States. You were 9 years old. So he was a very sickly child, and those that took after him and were supposed to take care of him while he ruled England were very Protestant leaning, and they used that to their advantage, that they had this little kid in power, and they pushed a Protestant agenda on the Church of England. So Edward dies in his teens, tragically, of all the sicknesses that he had, and he left his half-sister Mary to take over and become queen. So because there's no male heir, Mary the First is in charge of England. So because Edward dies, Mary the First is in charge. She tries to restore traditional Catholicism to England. She wants to still have more of a grip of Catholic tradition and root out Protestantism. So until her death, she is responsible for killing over 300 Protestants, burning them at the stake for heresy. But it actually had the opposite effect of what she wanted. Protestantism grows even more. There's more Protestants than ever before in England because people use their stories and make them out as martyrs for a just cause of spreading Protestantism. So her plan actually kind of backfires. So Mary the First dies. Queen Elizabeth, remember her from earlier? She takes over as Queen Elizabeth the First. She wants to unite the people of England. So Queen Elizabeth I was more moderate regarding religion. The Church of England becomes Protestant with some Catholic features still in place, and it becomes known as Anglicanism or the Anglican Church. This pleased most people. They were like, okay, I can handle this. But some radical groups known as Puritans wanted to purge England of any Catholic influence. The Church of England needed to be Protestant and Protestant alone. So why do we care? This whole thing sounds like a soap opera, right? We got baby daddies, we got people killing their ex-wives, we got all this crazy stuff going on. Why do we care about the English Reformation? So like in other parts of Europe, Protestantism is still spreading, okay? It's going to spread all over Europe. And it's another signifier that this separation of Christianity between Catholic and Protestant is not going anywhere. It's spreading throughout Europe still. The power of the Catholic Church and the Pope are put in question in England, which was a really big deal back then. And like I said, the divide between Protestant and Catholic is still going to exist. Also, why this is important, it's just another example throughout world history of religion being used and tweaked and used as a weapon for personal gain. So in Henry VIII's example, he was using that so he could have a male heir. So it was more of a political reason than a religious problem that he had. So an example of how religion can be used against people. And that's happened throughout world history. So if you understand those concepts, we are going to work on an assignment the next couple days about the English Reformation. If you have any questions for me, shoot me an email, Google Classroom, Remind message. I'll be here to help you. Have a great day.